You're listening to the Entrepreneur to Author podcast.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur to Author podcast, the podcast that brings you practical strategies for building authority and growing your business. And now, here's your host, Scott McMillan.
In this episode, we're doing another book blueprint teardown. This time, of Systemology by David Jenyns. But before we jump in, let's recap why these teardown episodes are so useful and why, I think, you've responded so positively to them. Now look, I love theory. As a strategy wonk, of course I do. Why? Because theory provides structure and context for principles and helps us better understand them and why they work. Theory ties everything together and packages it up. But examples are important too. They prove that a theory has legs, that it works in practice, and they help clarify how the theory actually plays out, how it works. So that's the purpose of the book blueprint teardown that we'll dive into in this edition of Entrepreneur to Author. Okay, here's a quick refresher of how these book blueprint teardowns go. In these episodes, I take popular, expertise-based nonfiction books and I break them down into the core strategic parts that make up its book blueprint, including the ideal reader, along with the current state they're in and the future state that they'd like to be in. We then identify the reader's core need and convert that into a question, the central question that the book answers for the reader. And finally, we summarize the solution that the author provides to answer that central question, which is effectively the big picture brainstorm stage of the book blueprint. Now, my wish for you is that these teardowns will both inform and inspire you to build your own book blueprint for your book idea and get you well on your way to writing that book. So, in this episode, we're looking at a book titled Systemology: Create Time, Reduce Errors, and Scale Your Profits with Proven Business Systems by David Jenyns. Now, I do have to share that this book absolutely does its job in terms of building the author's authority and positively impacting his business. You see, right after I read it, I was so convinced of the effectiveness of what David had shared that I signed up for a monthly plan for his online software called System Hub. And if you're keen on learning more about System Hub, I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can check it out. But let's jump in and discuss the ideal reader for this book. The ideal reader for Systemology is a seasoned business owner who has tried and failed to systematize their business. Their current state is that their business is disorganized, inconsistent, and it's dependent on them as the owner. But where do they want to be? They're looking to create structure and reliability within their business so that it can deliver predictable results and profits systematically without depending on them to babysit it all the time. So what does the reader need? Framed as a need, David's reader needs to find a way to implement processes in their business. Processes that give them the assurance that the business will operate effectively and systematically to deliver great results for customers and profits for them as the business owner. And they also need to do it in a way that is sustainable for them and for their team. Now, that sounds like a great proposition, but if you were asked to write a book about that, where would you start? It's going to be much easier to write a book on this topic if we convert that reader need into a question. The central question that the book answers for readers. Recall that the key to an effective central question is to phrase it the way your reader would ask it. you want to keep it short and simple. So in this instance, I'd say that a great framing for the central question would be, how can I systematize my business so that it works and sticks? That's short and sweet, but it's right on target for what the reader needs from this book. The solution comes next, the author's solution, and that's the answer to the central question. Now, I've said this before, but a great place to start when reverse engineering a book blueprint is the contents page, because that clearly shows the structure of the book and reflects the structure of the author's IP. It's the structure that makes sure that the author leads the reader on the journey from the current state that we talked about earlier to the future state that the reader hopes to get to by the end of the book. Here are the major topics that Jenyns covers in Systemology. The topics that make up the 7-part framework that is his solution to the central question his readers have. The first is define. And in this chapter, Jenyns encourages readers to define the critical client flow for their primary target client and for the primary product that they offer to them. And what this does is it determines the 10 to 15 key systems that should be documented first. The second is assign. And this is about assigning key systems to the knowledgeable worker who is in the best position to document it. Next, extract. This topic is about extracting the knowledge from within your team into a system that can be shared. Organize. This topic is about organizing your systems in a way that they can be used in your business. And a big part of this, though not the only part, is making decisions about what software you'll use. The next is integrate. And integration is about getting buy-in from your team and embedding your systems within your business. Scale. This topic isn't about scaling your systematization efforts. Rather, it's about systematizing the activities that will help your business scale. And finally, optimize. This topic is about optimizing your business by monitoring and improving your key systems. And the result of this 7-step framework is an excellent business resource that really delivers on its promise to readers. As always, you'll find a one-pager that visually summarizes this teardown over at entrepreneur-to-author.com/podcast/resources. And that's a free resource for you, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for easy access. Now remember, my goal with these teardowns is to help you bridge that knowing-doing gap so that you can put the concept of a book blueprint into action. And as you do, remember this. The clearer your structure, the clearer your message will be for your reader. And the key to a clear structure is to plot it out very clearly before you even begin writing. And the book blueprint is an excellent approach for doing exactly that. If you'd like to dive deeper into how to build a book blueprint for your book, I would invite you to visit entrepreneur-to-author.com. Grab a copy of my book, Entrepreneur to Author, and check out Chapter 4 specifically, where I go into all of the detail around this. Now is the time. Time to write, time to publish, and time to grow. I'm Scott McMillan. Until next time.